And welcome to the show. My name is Naeem Sharif, and this is the Al Islam and Community Issues Group program. Brother Benjamin Shabazz is our guest today.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Would you please open us with a prayer?
A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim. I seek refuge with Allah from the rejected enemy, Satan the devil. We ask the Almighty Creator to bless us with success, and we ask the Almighty Creator to open up the minds of the viewing audience. Ameen.
Amen. All right. So I guess we're going to really get into Al Islam and community issues today. So I think your topic is Al Islam and social justice?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, it is.
All right.
Yes, it is. Coming from a background as being an African American, we experienced social justice and how it worked for us, and the necessity of social justice.
Mm-hmm.
So then, becoming a Muslim, it became very difficult to understand why social justice was almost absent in the teachings of some of these people that teach Islam, especially from a foreign or overseas point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And I had always been puzzled by that. Like, what happened? And so the advent of our prophet, which says that he was coming to break the yokes from our backs, that troubled us.
Right, right.
And Islam is with the Quran is a perfect book, you see. And then when I started studying the history of Muhammad, our prophet, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him forever, I saw that their whole mission was about social justice. Every aspect of social justice was addressed by Prophet Muhammad and his followers,
Mm-hmm.
Up until the present day. So I often wondered what all of a sudden is missing. People get bogged down with costumes and bogged down with rituals and bogged down with the sayings of the prophet, and that would take up the entirety of their speeches or lectures or conversations.
Right.
But what is it that was? Can I find something in the Quran?
Mm-hmm.
Can I find something in the life of the prophet that pointed to Islam being a religion of social justice? And I found it.
Mm.
So I want to share that. Now the first one is from a book called The Life of Muhammad, translated by Ismail Raja al-Faruqi.
Mm-hmm.
And it's translated by him, but it's The Life of Muhammad by Hussein Haykal,
Okay.
Haykal. Now in this, on page 57, it talks about Muhammad before he got the call to be a prophet as a young man.
Okay, so he was just a regular person
Right.
in the society.
Right. And it's called the Alliance of Fudul. And in Arabic, it's Hilf al-Fudul,
Okay.
the Alliance of Fudul. So it gives a little bit of what's going on with the Quraysh in Arabia. And I'll start right here. At his request and appeal, they covenanted together, making God their witness, that they will henceforth and forever stand on the side of the victim of injustice. Muhammad attended the conclusion of this pact, which the Arabs call the Alliance of Fudul, and said, I uphold the pact concluded in my presence when Ibn Judayn gave us a great banquet. Should it ever be invoked, I shall immediately rise to answer the call. In the Fajr War, hostilities were waged only during a few days every year. During the rest of the year, the Arabs returned to their normal occupations. Neither losses in property nor in life were grave enough to change the Meccans' daily routines of trade, usury, wine, women, and other kinds of entertainment. Was this Muhammad's daily routine as well? or did his poverty and dependence upon his uncle for protection force him to stay away from the luxury and extravagance of his contemporaries? That he kept away from these indulgences is historically certain. That he did so not on account of his poverty is equally certain. The debaucheries of Mecca, who were hardly capable of providing for themselves the immediate needs of the day, could still afford their life of turpitude. Indeed, some of the poorest among them could outdo the nobles of Mecca and the lords of Quraysh. Rather, the soul of Muhammad was far too possessed by his will to learn, to discover, and to know, to incline towards any such depravities, his having been deprived as a boy of the learning which was the privilege of the rich made him all the more anxious to learn on his own. So, I got away a little bit from this alliance. This alliance was formed by the Meccans to keep down too much war that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
But the treatment, a lot of people were being mistreated.
Okay.
That's what the thing was. And Mecca was losing its stance in the outer societies as being a place that people could respect.
Okay.
So they came up with this. Alliance of Fudul. It's also called the Alliance of Virtue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and you can look it up. It's called Hilf, HILF-ALFUDUL, Hilf al-Fudul, or the Alliance of the Virtuous, or the Alliance of Fudul. To make the long story short, Muhammad ibn Abdullah, before he was Prophet Muhammad, saw the necessity of such an alliance, and he joined it.
Okay.
And after he became the prophet, he made a statement that if that it was ever needed to put into force, that he would be a part of it. You see. So what am I saying basically is that our prophet had always had it in his heart to be a protector of the weak and the vulnerable, and really an advocate of social justice.
Okay.
So that's number one.
Well, you know, you don't hear about that.
Never hear about
You
this.
don't hear about that. Yeah. Now, I think I'll say this now. So we hear a lot. So what was his stance on slavery, and what kind of slavery existed then, compared to, the slavery that we went through? Because there's many stories where there's a lot of sides, about this slavery issue, and some people say, there was the Muslims were involved in slavery and so forth and so on, and so forth. So let's because we're talking about social justice here.
Right. Slavery in this part of the world was the order of the day, and but the slavery did not diminish the persons as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Slavery was kind of like if you work for somebody.
So servitude.
Servitude. It was a form of servitude. It did kind of diminish your rank in the society, so to speak, because you were a slave working for somebody else. But I mean, you could choose to be a slave. You could say, I like you. I think I'm gonna cut your grass. Do your dishes, keep your car shine. And in exchange for that, you give me food and clothing and shelter. So it wasn't where I own you, and I'm gonna change your name, I'm gonna change your religion, and you become my property. It wasn't. That wasn't the level that it was on.
Okay.
And you hear people a lot talk about, well, slavery was all over the world. Everybody had slavery, but not on the level that slavery was practiced in the Western world. Slavery was practiced in the Western world where they took your heart, they took your mind, they took your soul. And you didn't have any options in this. And if you disagreed in any shape, form, or fashion, they'd beat the hell out of you.
Right.
Literally. And if you tried to run away and they'd catch you, they'd cut your foot off, and all these type of things. You see, so matter of fact, in the books that talk about slavery in this part of the world, they talk about this was a peculiar kind of slavery. So now, let's go to the Hadith. This is from the Gardens of the Righteous by Riyad As-Salihin and Muhammad Zafrullah Khan. So let's talk about staying away from social justice. This is Abu Huraira relates that a companion of the Holy Prophet came upon a valley in which there was a spring of sweet water, which pleased him greatly. He reflected, I wish I could withdraw from people and settle in this valley, but I shall do it only with the permission of the Holy Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He mentioned this to the Holy Prophet, who said to him, do not do this, for one standing ready in the cause of Allah is better than his prayers in his home throughout 70 years. Would you not wish that Allah should forgive you and admit you to paradise? Then fight in the cause of Allah. Paradise becomes incumbent for those who fight in the cause of Allah, even for the briefest space. Sadaqallahu alayhim, surely Allah speaks the truth. So I brought this up because this hadith is making it very clear that to stand in readiness to fight in the cause of Allah is incumbent upon us.
Mm-hmm.
Now we know that we have to give a footnote to what we talk about fighting because of this thing called terrorism going around.
Right.
We don't want people to think that we're talking about picking up a gun or picking up a sword. But in those days, that's what they were doing because they were actually fighting physical enemies. So when we talk about fighting today, we're instructed by the Prophet that you can, if you see wrong, move against it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's three ways to do it. You can do it physically, you can do it by talking about it, or you can do it having the feeling in your heart. And we're told the feeling in the heart is the weakest.
Mm-hmm.
So in a civilized society, you can't go around jumping on people because they're doing something you don't approve of.
Mm-hmm.
But you can speak on it, and that comes from talking, the press, doing shows like this,
Mm-hmm.
the TV, all of the media outlets, This is a way of fighting. So we're instructed by this hadith that we don't take breaks like that, go off somewhere and isolate ourselves and live in a peaceful environment. Now, I brought those two up first, but now I want to get to the Quran
Okay.
on this issue. Because it say, many books can inform you, but the Quran can transform you. And so this is on page 1650, and this is Surah 90 al-Balad, or the city. And this is verse 4. Verily we have created man into toil and struggle. So there's the genesis of it right there.
Mm-hmm.
We're created into toil and struggle. Verily we have created man into toil and struggle. So we're not to look for the life of Raleigh. We are to look for to be soldiers in this army.
Mm-hmm.
But the life that's what the life is going to be made up of, is toil and struggle. And when we study the life history of our prophet, that's what his life was, toil and struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the whole thing, up until he passed, was toil and struggle, toil and struggle, toil and struggle. But because of his sacrifice, Islam has been the fastest growing religion in the world. It's all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere you go, you're going to find a Muslim. So it's not that these things are just done in vain. They're done for a purpose. And it's the social justice aspect of it that attract people to it, because we stand for what's right. We stand to protect the innocent
Mm-hmm.
and the vulnerable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now, in this same chapter, chapter 90, let's read on here. I'm going to read go back to the beginning of this chapter. I do call to witness this city, and thou art a free man of this city, and the mystic ties of parent and child. Verily we have created man into toil and struggle. Thinketh he that none has power over him? He may say boastfully, wealth have I squandered in abundance. Thinketh he that none beholds him? Have we not made for him a pair of eyes, and a tongue and a pair of lips, and shown him the two highways. But he has made no haste on the path that is steep. And what will explain to thee the path that is steep? It is the freeing of the slave.
No, wait a minute. What? The freeing of the slave?
That's the first article of explaining what the path that is steep. The freeing of the slave, or the giving of food in a day of privation, to the orphan with claims of relationship, or to the indigent down in the dust. Then will he be of those who believe, and enjoin patience, constancy, and self-restraint, and enjoin deeds of kindness and compassion. Such are the companions of the right hand. But those who reject our signs, they are the unhappy companions of the left hand. On them will be fire vaulted over all around. That was Surah 90. That whole surah consists of 20 verses, and that's kind of like crystal clear.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're talking about social justice. We're talking about feeding the homeless. We're talking about taking care of the orphans.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the man down in the dust, taking care of him, and having patience and self-restraint, and to do deeds of kindness and compassion. So I wanted to use the Quran to point these things out so that they're just not some fantasies that people thought up, well, this is what y'all should be doing. No, this is what Allah instructed us to do in the Quran. And so I find that the steep path is true. What Allah says, many don't want to take that steep path. And then what is the steep path? Article number 1, the freeing of the slave. And we know there's many types of slavery.
Exactly.
There's physical slavery, there's mental slavery, there's psychological slavery, there's spiritual slavery. There's all kind of things out there to capture the control of the human being and put them subservient to other than Allah. And so they can be doing things and not really be benefiting anybody. And I like to think about those Dracula movies.
Yeah.
You know how it's a funny thing. Every time Dracula bites somebody, they become his devoted followers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he puts them in a trance. You know, they will do anything that he says. And I thought about that. It says that Allah is closer to you than your jugular vein. Well, what does the jugular vein do? It supplies oxygen to your brain, which keeps you alive.
Yeah.
So then Dracula cuts that off. See? So now he becomes the dominant one in your life. So the oxygen is kind of like going to the brain, but he's kind of infused some of his blood in there with your blood, and he becomes the ruler. But you go in a trance, and you know what they used to say? Where did Dracula come from?
Transylvania.
Transylvania.
So language, as Imam W.D. Muhammad says, is very important. Man, I tell you.
And when you can pick up on the language, things be so clear. But when you can't, it's just another movie, one of them vampire movies.
Yeah.
And then how did they combat Dracula? With religion. Usually the symbol of the cross.
Right, right.
And then if they would catch him at the right time when he was asleep or something, they could draw a nail through his heart.
Yeah.
But these latest Draculas that came out, like the one with Frank Langella, they came up with the cross. He knocked it to the Bible out of the dude's head. He said, that became stronger than that.
Wow.
Is that all you got?
Interesting.
But what did get him was sunlight. You know, he was afraid of being exposed, coming out in the open. That's what would destroy him and turn him to dust. And it's the same thing today. It's the same thing today. Okay, let's stay in the Quran here. This is page 70, chapter 2, verse 177. Okay. Al-Baqarah, verse 177. Now we're talking about righteousness again.
Okay.
Allah says, it is not righteousness that you turn your faces towards east or west. But it is righteousness to believe in Allah and the last day and the angels and the book and the messengers, to spend of your substance out of love for Him, for your kindred, for orphans, for the needy, for the wayfarer, for those who ask, and for the ransom of slaves. To be steadfast in prayer and practice regular charity, to fulfill the contracts which ye have made, and to be firm and patient in pain or suffering and adversity, and throughout all periods of panic. Such are the people of truth, the God-fearing. So here again, it's talking about part of the being righteousness is spending your goods, your time, your money for the ransom of slaves. Here again, slaves is mentioned again. So this is social justice. You know, being involved in these movements, this is social justice. I mean, to spend of your substance out of love for Him, for your kin, for orphans, for the needy, for the wayfarer, for those who ask, and for the ransom of slaves. All this is one unit of understanding of what a Muslim's role is.
You wouldn't think it though. Not nowadays. You wouldn't think it.
It's unbelievable. So we got the steep path, and we got what is righteousness, and we got the hadith is telling us, don't look for a safe place to go somewhere and isolate yourself. And then the life of Muhammad is talking about, even before he became a Muslim, he was involved with being a part of groups that were looking out for the vulnerable and the mistreatment of people. So I want to put that out there because, you know, you're always going to have people that's going to criticize you.
Right.
You know, but the verses in the Quran are right there. So criticize that. You know, the life of Muhammad is right there. The hadith is right there. So I presented my proof, so to speak, and that's basically where I'm trying to go with this, man. That Islam equals social justice.
Very good. So how did the Quran address slavery, and how did it abolish it?
Okay, yes, you did ask that question. I've heard a scholar say that slavery was such an ingrained part of the societies, this classism,
Right.
that to just come and say there will be no more slavery would affect the slaveholders, you know, in the wrong way. So what Allah did, the master, you know, he just took the qualities of what it was to own a slave and changed those. So he said, if you have a slave, you have to feed him the food you eat.
Okay.
If you have a slave, you have to let him dress in the type of clothes that you wear. If you have a slave, if he asks for his freedom, you can you know, set up a system where you can grant him his freedom. If you have a slave, you can't strike him. Even to the point, if you have a slave, don't call him slave. Call him like a member of your family, like my son or my boy or something. And when that was done, there were a lot of slaveholders that said, well, what do I need a slave for?
You said, what's the point now?
So the term slavery was never abolished, but the standards of slavery was rearranged so that you have to deal with this individual as a human being like yourself.
So basically, it abolished it by changing the rules, or the I don't know what the word, maybe the rules or whatever, the things that the environment or whatever. You had to treat him just like He was part of your family.
Exactly.
So it was like, if you followed that logic, then it's like, what's the point?
Exactly.
So that's how they did it.
Or you could keep your slave,
Mm-hmm.
be humane about it,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody keep on moving.
So, like I said, it wasn't like the slavery like that we were under.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
no. We were less than a human being. We were
Mhm.
3/5 of a human being.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So Islam came and did that for slavery. And so in today's modern times, I would wish that, and I try to keep pushing this message,
Mm-hmm.
that people would see, Muslims, especially Muslims, would see that there are still injustices in the society.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the Muslims' role in the society to address those injustices. That was Prophet Muhammad's mission,
Uh-huh.
and the followers of Prophet Muhammad, that's our mission.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many, many things that's going on, you know, like rent control issues,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
So in other words, get involved in the society.
getting involved in the
So
society.
don't stay at the masjid or the mosque for 24 hours and say
Yeah.
9,000 prayers and
Yeah,
fast 295 days and don't help the society.
there's a hadith on that where the people came to the Prophet and talked about this wonderful man that was in the masjid praying all the time, and he fasted all the time, and the Prophet said, well, who takes care of him? And he said, well, we do. And he said, well, you are better than him.
Mm.
You know, so Islam is a practical religion.
Mm-hmm.
It's a practical religion. And just also what the verse in the Quran says, righteousness is not turning your face to the east or the west.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not all about rituals. It's about getting out into the society and making your presence known
Mm-hmm.
by taking care of the unfortunate, the vulnerable, and helping them stand up and get on their feet. But even past that, which other people can try to interpret,
Mm-hmm.
it literally says freeing of the slave. So,
Yeah, I don't hear that when I go to different other Muslim places of worship and something. It's a whole another thing. Yeah, it's a whole nother thing. Yeah, that is interesting. That is interesting. Brother Benjamin Shabazz, we thank you for doing that research, bringing it out, and so people know. Yeah, people will know, especially the Muslims will know. Try to do a better job. Yeah, because we have a lot of work to do in the Muslim community, and then to help society. So we thank you very much. Thank our audience. Thank you. Peace and prayers. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaykum assalam.